Hi, let's get acquainted. This guy's name is Simon. He's an orphan. He has no father, no mother, and not even a sibling. Simon looks like a middle school student, but he's much older, and his exact age is a secret. Our hero makes his living entertaining people on live broadcasts. On the internet, he is known under the nickname Mouse. Every day he plays the stupid schoolboy so naive girls will donate to him. That's why he hid his real age. After all, his whole image is built around a small, sweet boy. One day, after finishing another stream, Simon decided to take a walk around the city and relax. As suddenly, a spatial rift opened up in the middle of the city, which emitted a nasty screeching sound. And then, there was a horrible creature with many tentacles and one huge eye. The monster called himself God, Agatha Nicholas. People could not believe their eyes. Many thought it was the devil himself who had come to them and started the apocalypse. But according to Agatha, he came to the human world not to destroy it, but to find the perfect warriors. Agatha surrounded the small group of people with a protective field so they couldn't escape. Also, Agatha promised that if people obeyed his will, he would be merciful to them and grant them boundless power. He gave the men 10 minutes to realize what was happening, after which Agatha would tell them their first mission. By chance, Simon was one of the few to be captured by Agatha. He thought it was all just a bad dream. Simon was naturally scared, but everyone else was truly terrified. Many tried to call the police or their families, but it was too late. There was no communication inside this dome, and not even sunlight could pass through it. While most people were panicking, one man decided to act. He realized that shouting and crying alone would not achieve anything. This big guy wanted to destroy the agate dome by throwing a bench at it. Expectedly, this did not end well. The bench, as if from a trampoline, bounced off the dome and crashed right into the man who threw it. With each passing second, this place made Simon more and more afraid, when suddenly, Simon received a message. But how is that possible, since there is no communication here, he thought. The message itself was very strange. It's a gift from the distant future. I hope you can pass on this time. Opening a classified file, our hero saw in front of him a wheel of fortune called the talent draw. Judging by the reactions of those around him, this message appeared only to him. If just this once, fate had mercy on him and gave him some kind of cheat. In this wheel of fortune, you could win all sorts of abilities, but you could also be left with nothing. Simon didn't hesitate to seize the opportunity, and he spun the wheel 5 times. When the wheel of fortune stopped, our hero felt as if his body was filled with spiritual energy. At that moment, it seemed to him that he could do absolutely anything. After receiving the secret powers, Simon stopped panicking, and on the contrary, he began to feel incredibly confident. Our hero received 5 new abilities: 2 silver, 1 blue, 1 gold, and 1 red. Their colors corresponded to their ranks. The first ability, it was called a trash can. The way it works is kind of funny. No matter what Simon eats, he'll always feel like he's eating a delicacy, and his health level will increase. The second ability was completely useless. It allowed our hero to urinate at a distance of 10 meters, even against the wind. The first 2 abilities were pretty lousy, so Simon was eager to learn about the higher-ranked abilities. But even they were useless. The blue ability is called Spirit Guy. It is a passive skill that makes Simon just a pleasant conversationalist. I want to know my strongest skill. Our hero skipped the golden ability and went straight to the red one, and it turned out to be the skill, the game of life. Thanks to this skill, our hero will stop feeling fear and doubt, no matter what or who is in front of him. I can see why Simon stopped feeling anxious after getting the ability. It's all the effect of the skill of the game of life. If you think about it that way, the very ability to get rid of any fear in the most unpredictable situation and not lose your temper is a good skill to have. And lastly, Simon decided to see what kind of gold skill he'd gotten. It turned out to be the Alfonso skill. From the name, it is already clear that this skill increases demand among girls. At first glance, this skill may seem very questionable, but if you know how to use it, you can arrange a good future. Having familiarized himself with the new powers, Simon closed the system window. After that, strange waves started to emanate from the phone and enter the body of our hero. As the last ray of light penetrated Simon's body, his head began to explode from the inside, as if someone was trying to get out. This pain was soon replaced by a noise similar to the hum of an electrical substation. But even being in such a state, Simon didn't panic. He realized that it was most likely the result of learning new skills. And he was right. A couple minutes later, the pain and noise were gone. My mind cleared and my eyes became sharper. What was strangest of all was that Simon now saw some sort of characterization window near each person. A mere glance is enough for Simon to know everything about a person: name, age, abilities, etc. The best part was that Simon also saw information about himself as well. It would be much easier to track his progress that way. Apparently, the appearance of the character panels is related to the skill life game. With a little practice, our hero learned to remove these panels with the power of his own thought. But then a girl passing nearby caught his attention. From her map, the character, Simon, learned that this girl is one of the daughters of a famous martial arts master. Her power stats are much higher than our hero's, so Alphonse's skill was activated forcibly. At one point, Simon and this girl's eyes crossed, and the girl involuntarily stopped her gaze on our hero. Having fallen under the influence of the Alphonse's skill, the girl blushed and got a little embarrassed. Without hesitation, she started walking towards Simon. Approaching our hero, the girl said, "Hello, my name is Lisa. Why are you here alone? Have you lost your parents?" "I know I have a very childish face, but not so much that you think I'm a child," Simon answered in the rudest possible voice. Lisa's demeanor made it clear that she was very disturbed by what was going on. And even so, she still chose to pay attention to Simon, trying to take care of him in some way. Alphonse's skills are really amazing. Realizing she'd made a mistake, Lisa tried to justify herself in various ways. But Simon saw this as a unique opportunity to find an ally. So he decided to make Lisa feel sorry for him by telling her that he had been an orphan since birth. Taking our hero by the hand, Lisa said, Don't worry. I'll protect you from any danger. You won't be alone anymore." Having fallen under Alphonse's influence, Lisa asked Simon about everything without stopping, when suddenly, their nice conversation was interrupted by a man who looked like a hollow cutter and said, "Mrs. Lisa, please, don't go so far. We don't know anything about the current situation." Saw our hero, the man asked Lisa who he was. Not wanting to hurt Simon's feelings, Lisa spoke in his ear about him being an orphan and demanding their protection. And so that he wouldn't be a burden, Lisa suggested that the man take Simon on as an assistant. Unlike the girl, her bodyguard was not influenced by Simon's skills, and regarded him with suspicion. But that's surprising to her, because it's his job to exclaim. Since they have to work together, our hero decided to open his character card, and I must admit, his characteristics are quite striking. No wonder he was assigned to guard such an important person. The man's specialty was perfect hand-to-hand combat, when suddenly, the protective barrier opened and the agate reappeared. Agatha could not speak like a human, but he communicated by telepathy. Suddenly he said, "My chosen warriors, it seems most of you have realized the situation you are in, but you come from a perfectly civilized world, with all the gods and no danger, so you didn't get the baptism of blood and fire, so you can't be considered full-fledged warriors. So your first task will be a trial run. I will randomly divide you into groups of 10 and send you to different worlds, so that you can fight monsters there." Seeing the horror on Simon's face, Lisa's bodyguard realized that he would be a liability in the coming ordeal. But as we know, Simon can't feel fear or terror. Indeed, he's not terrified. He's surprised. The whole point is that Agate is incredibly strong, so his characteristics are hidden to our hero. However, Agate was female, and Simon's Alphonse skill worked on her. Having fallen under the influence of our hero, Agatha said, "However, out of pity for some of you, I, merciful Agatha Nicholas, will not let my noble warriors die in vain. Therefore, death in such a trial will not be a present thing for you. You will not die." That's pretty good news. Of course, the pain they will experience will feel like real pain. After his last encounter with Agatha, Simon lost consciousness for a while, and woke up in a strange place with cobwebs everywhere. Looked around. Off to the side, our hero saw a group of 9 people, among whom there was neither Lisa nor her bodyguard. "I guess I didn't have that much luck this time, so we're gonna have to figure it out on our own." Apparently, Agatha sent Simon's group to the spider's lair. Our hero did not understand why the rest of the people are so much frightened. After all, they will have to meet with ordinary spiders. Just like that, some huge spiders the size of big pumpkins ran through. Well, now Simon understood what the other members of the group were so afraid of. These spiders are not small, but amongst all the alarmists, there was one guy who could control his feelings and started crushing the spiders, showing the others that these monsters weren't so scary. Seeing the fear in the eyes of others, this guy shouted, "We humans are the top predators. Are we going to be afraid of some spiders? We just need to use our main weapon, intelligence." Opening his character card, Simon saw that this guy had pretty high leadership skills. When suddenly, a huge granite slab appeared from the ground. Text, Mother Spider's Lair. Female spiders tend to become extremely aggressive during the breeding season. Note: this world has been modified and the IQ of the monsters has been purposely lowered. Escape from their line of sight will stop pursuit. But this is only the case here. This will not be the case in other worlds. Simon has some concerns that the deeper they go, the bigger and more ferocious the monsters they'll encounter. When you think about it, the best solution is to split up into small units. It'll be easier to protect each other that way. The shadow can move too, but Simon's too weak, and his good looks won't convince anyone to listen to his ideas. We'll just have to wait and see from the sidelines. On the other hand, if Agatha wasn't lying, going through the wall together isn't such a bad idea. But someone's going to get killed, as suddenly Agatha's voice began to be heard in people's heads. Warriors, since this is your first task, I will give you a hint. Enter the cave, do your best to survive and try to go as deep as possible. If you linger in the initial location, the spider will get angry and kill you. Well, the advice was very sound, and you can't say they had any other choice. To keep himself as safe as possible, Simon decided to stay at the tail end of the group so he wouldn't get involved in the fighting. From the inside, these caves were even creepier than the outside. As I made my way deeper, Simon noticed that the webs were getting bigger and bigger. Some members of the team were very unhappy that our hero was in their group. After all, he was a burden to everyone. But the commander was of a different opinion. He thought that Simon could help the team. If they are attacked, our hero will make a decoy to distract the monsters. The group was slowly but steadily making their way into the depths and still hadn't encountered a single monster. Well, things can change in an instant. While all the members of the group trembled with fear, Simon studied the caves and pondered possible developments. When suddenly, the girl who was walking in front of our hero was attacked by a spider. At that moment, Simon realized that being in the tail of the group, he was not safe. Now he's just lucky. It could have been him. Simon just stood there, watching the monster suck the last drops of life out of his partner. Here comes first blood. Everyone knew it would happen sooner or later, but no one was prepared for such a spectacle. The girl would live, but her screams were terrifying. Sensing danger, the group commander ordered everyone to retreat immediately. Naturally, everyone ran away, leaving Simon alone with the spiders and the girl's cold body. When the spider sucked all the girl's blood, it decided to switch to our hero. Simon quickly realized that no one could help him in this situation, so he had to protect himself. No matter how you look at it, man is a kind of animal too, and if Simon wants to survive, he has to kill the spider before it kills him. Swinging a huge boulder, our hero was ready to strike. Suddenly, a spider character window appeared. Fortunately for Simon, this spider turned out to be a girl, and having fallen under the influence of the skill Alphonse, this monster began to treat our hero in a friendly manner. I wonder, is it even normal that such a skill works on monsters? Although why should I be surprised, because it even worked on the ancient god. The power of Alphonse's skill, surprising Simon more and more each time. And besides, this skill is having a little too much of an effect on the spider. I'd say she has a deep sympathy for Simon. Simon realized that sooner or later it would be a disaster for him. So he decided to kill the monster, but after looking into its pretty eyes, he changed his mind. Our hero realized he was making a huge mistake that could cost him his life. But he couldn't just kill a benevolent spider. After half an hour of wandering through the labyrinths of the cave, Simon had some idea of the power of spiders. For one thing, their strength and agility are many times greater than Simon's. But even so, they're inferior to some humans, so the potential of their ability is quite meager. Even if you compare them to Lisa's bodyguard, the spiders are much weaker than him. At the same time, after comparing himself to the monster, Simon found that the character's panel data was very accurate. For example, his strength and dexterity are twice as bad, but his will is 4 times better, which suggests that even a tuck attack would be useless. Simon wouldn't have been able to defeat her. This spider's attributes are actually stronger than a normal human's. But even so, it couldn't kill a human in one fell swoop. So if one monster wanted to kill someone, Simon would see it, saw him attack. And also, our hero realized why Agatha had arranged all this in the first place. They're her warriors, so it was inevitable that their hands would be covered in blood. And you can easily guess what the strength, agility, and physique traits are responsible for. But the question is different, what the characteristic of will is responsible for, and why Simon's willpower score is so high compared to Lisa's bodyguard. Could it be the result of the spirit guy skill? Simply put, there are more questions than answers right now, and there's no point in going through all that now. So Simon decided to just explore the location. especially since Simon hadn't encountered any other monsters since he'd befriended the spider. Our hero's priority now was to find someone stronger who could protect him. Simon paced back and forth in the cave for hours, and in that time, he hasn't met a single living person, but he has found 8 dead members of his crew. I wonder how that could happen, because obviously, acting a part equals death. But Simon never stopped searching. From time to time, he found traces of those who might have survived, because there were severed spider limbs everywhere. But after some more time, our hero's hope completely vanished, because he found the body of the team leader, the strongest man alive. Apparently, he was attacked by several monsters at the same time. In that case, there's no chance of survival. And meanwhile, Simon had already assembled a whole squad of spiders. And the amazing thing is, he doesn't have to be afraid of them. They will help him no matter what situation he finds himself in. Simon wandered through the endless tunnels for a long time before he came upon something amazing. Our hero found the lair of the main monster. It was the only place in the cave where there was any source of light. But what caught Simon's attention the most was the chest on which the Spider Queen slept. Unlike all the monsters our hero had met before, their queen looked like a beautiful girl. Sensing the presence of an intruder, the Spider Queen awakened. At first she was extremely aggressive, her maternal instincts kicking in. But everything changed exactly at the moment when Simon's skill began to work. After activating Alphonse, the queen's attitude towards our hero became dramatically positive, and so much so that she was willing to follow him as well as her children. The task given to Agatha said that the group had to get into the heart of the cave, and not a word about killing the boss. So technically, Simon has technically completed God's task. Suddenly, the usual spiders began to push our hero, and did it quite insistently, while making a nasty sound. But why? Because the Alphonse skill is still in effect. The monsters shouldn't be hostile to him. And they were not hostile to him. They were only carrying him like a wave to their queen. These spiders may not be intelligent, but they intend to bring Simon Man to their mother. But why? The first thought on our hero's mind is that they want to marry them. When he was at the queen's feet, our hero said in a trembling voice, "My name is Simon, but you can call me Mouse. What's your name?" But the queen didn't say a word, just touched her ice-cold hand to Simon's cheek. This behavior of the queen made our hero feel uncomfortable. He tried to remove her hands from his face and said, "Listen, I'm glad to meet you. But don't you think that we—" "Be quiet," the queen whispered softly. She put her finger to his lips. She took a long, hard look into his eyes, then suddenly began tearing his clothes to shreds. Simon tried his best to stop her, but the queen was stronger than him. Realizing that he couldn't get out on his own, our hero started screaming at the top of his voice and calling for help. The queen couldn't take it, and she put a spiderweb over Simon's mouth. Staring at our hero with an amorous gaze, the queen whispered again, "Be quiet." Immobilizing Simon's arms and legs with his web, the queen proceeded to strip him of all his clothes. Of course, you'd think she'd want to kill him, but then she wouldn't be so bothered. But what does she want? It turned out to be nothing like Simon thought it would be, or should I say a dream. The Spider-Woman took all the clothes off our hero to change him into clothes made of spider silk, which she made herself. Upon opening her character map, Simon learned that on it, the queen had satisfied her fondest dream. And now her friendliness would never diminish. Well, you'd expect anything here, but this is just too weird. Having received such an ambiguous gift, our hero thanked the queen for the work done, and offered in return to clean her lair. In fact, that suggestion was Simon's cunning plan to get to the chest. Being on friendly terms, the queen trusted our hero completely, so she let him touch the treasure. This chest is the only thing of value here. Simon hoped he wouldn't be disappointed by the trunk's contents. As soon as Simon's hand touched the lid of the chest, the voice of Agatha rang out. Who would have thought that someone had actually managed to get the main reward without killing the monster? When Simon heard that, he began to worry that he wasn't the only one who'd heard the agate. But seeing the reaction of the queen and the regular spiders, he realized he was the only one who heard those words. Simon was sure that Agatha would reward him with something unique for accomplishing the mission so perfectly. Agatha recognized our hero's courage and ingenuity and decided to reward him with a unique item, for the first time ever. The item that was in the chest was emitting a bright golden light. This meant that Simon's prize was of legendary level. After a while, the light was not so bright, and Simon could see his prize, which was an old book of some kind. This is an epic prop book for gear. You have to touch it to get detailed information about it. Everything that was happening led Simon to think that if he clearly followed all of Agatha's instructions, he would gain an advantage over the others. Touching the ancient relic, our hero felt a surprisingly powerful and luminous sweat of thoughts. The gear prop book allows Simon to learn all the vocational skills recorded in it. It's like learning skills in an online game, but right now, only one thing is available to him. The monster tamer skills look the most attractive. As the name implies, Simon can make contracts with various monsters. Now our hero can only subdue one monster, and that's not because of the tamer's profession, but rather because of the skill Alphonse. If Simon wants to get more minions, he needs to become stronger in this area. But how exactly to improve himself is not described in the book. So it is up to our hero to find the answer to this question himself. During battles, Simon will be able to summon his contract monsters. They in turn will carry out his orders, and the strength of their bond will directly depend on the willpower indicator. If you sign a contract with several monsters at the same time, you can create a real dream team. For a Simon, such a skill suited him perfectly. While the others are fighting in person with sword in hand, our hero can stand behind and just watch his monsters tear the opponents apart. After thinking it over, Simon decides to study the profession of monster tamer. From now on, he will no longer be a mere mortal. He is now a mortal controlling horrible monsters. Having studied his first profession, on the left palm of our hero appeared the same seal as on the cover of the book. Simon had been through this before. Acquiring a profession was embedded in his head, just as skills were embedded at the beginning. Taming monsters is based on the power of the mind. Simon can roughly judge in advance the difficulty of making a contract with the monster in front of him. First of all, Simon decided to make a pact with the little spiders. Due to the vast difference in their willpower, it wouldn't be much of a problem. Well, there goes the first contract, when suddenly the Spider Queen came within an obscenely short distance of Simon. She was gesticulating vigorously, trying to explain something to our hero. But no matter how hard the Queen tried, Simon didn't understand. So our hero decided to see if he could make a contract with her. And yes, making a contract with the Queen is possible just like with ordinary spiders. But how could this happen because she is the boss of this dungeon? The strength of her will is up to 6 points, only 2 points less than Simon's. It should be much more difficult to contract her than a normal monster whose will is 2 points strong. Her level and overall stats are much stronger than our hero. Is it really all thanks to the Alphonse skill? In such a case, if our hero is going to make contracts with monsters, he should choose among those whose will is weaker than his, but whose overall strength is higher. For Simon, this is the perfect opportunity to build an incredibly powerful team. Who will protect him? Especially since we don't know what our hero will face in the next challenge. Perhaps the next boss will be a man. After the contract was signed, the Spider Queen began to disappear, turning into a sheet of silk. Her body completely changed to human form and reunited with Simon's shadow. The level boss is gone. This means that within a minute the task will be over and everything will return to its original position. Even though the assignment didn't exactly go smoothly. For Simon, it was quite profitable. After all, the Spider Queen was twice as strong as Lisa's bodyguard and 3 times as agile. She remained a shadow on our hero's shoulder. And the most amazing thing was that he could feel all her emotions. It was a very, very special experience. Meanwhile, Agatha began to teleport Simon back. Due to the fact that each individual group was on different worlds, the goddess brought everyone back at the same time. The reward for passing the level will be distributed among all participants in the form of points to their personal terminals. Terminal, a kind of passport with all the information about the person. Only the owner can see it. Relying on it, people can check their new attributes, point status and task rating. Agatha gave all the people 1 hour to break into teams and prepare for the next task, while Simon was studying his terminal, which was an exact copy of his skill. The game of life. He heard a familiar voice behind him. When he turned around, he saw Lisa running toward him, and from the look on her face, Simon could tell she was worried about something. Come closer, the girl began to examine our hero and then said, "Mouse, how did it go? You are not hurt." But Simon just laughed and said it went smoothly, when suddenly, he heard the Queen's voice. She was displeased with Lisa's excessive focus on our hero. Hell, it turns out that after Kofi, which is the Spider Queen's name by the way, went into Simon's shadow, she still has a sense of reality. If he gets involved with other girls, he'll lose Kofi's favor, and she can break the contract. Frankly, it creates a whole host of huge problems. If the girls fight for our hero's attention amongst themselves, the consequences will be dire. During the conversation, Lisa said this interesting phrase. "Sorry, it's just that strong feelings confuse my train of thought." Simon has been alone his whole life, so now that he has the opportunity to have a strong ally like Lisa, he won't pass it up. The important thing in all this is to find a balance that stays on good terms with everyone. By the way, Simon didn't get a single experience point for the first trial. This means that only by killing a monster can you get experience points, but Agatha said Simon did the best. The mechanism of this game is too unbalanced. In the end, Simon got 0 points for the mission and ranked 3051st. Lisa, on the other hand, was in 1214th place, with 40 experience points. Damn it! Lisa's bodyguard climbed all the way to 10th place and scored 110 points. That's how many monsters he took down. Seeing this, Lisa said, "Mousy, he really is very strong, but let's not talk about him." In addition, Wei the bodyguard led a lot of people. In such a strange world, to survive, you have to stay in a group. So Lisa asked Simon to join her. Simon was confused by the fact that he had seen Lisa and Wei's characteristics, and the difference wasn't that big. So why did he score so many points? Apparently he's found some hidden method of scoring points. But now was not the best time to ask Lisa about it. Meanwhile, Wei had already gathered a group of the strongest and craziest fighters. It makes a lot of sense in this situation, because your own life will depend on the group. Seeing Lisa, who brought Simon, Wei said, "Miss, this is the last time I'll call you Miss. You realize now that status doesn't matter. I'll give you one last piece of advice. Drop that Walking Dead guy. He'll drag you to the grave with him. Look, the guy next to me is an ex-lawyer. Seems like a quiet bookworm. But this guy's a real czar, ready to tear anyone apart. He's a good fighter. Realize one simple truth in this world. You can only rely on strength," Wei added. Lisa's face changed dramatically at that moment. It was obvious how hard it was for the girl to hear all this. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore and screamed, "You're disgusting. You sacrificed old people and children to earn experience points. You left the girls for carnal pleasures and then killed them. Then you said it would be easier. It'd be more efficient. I disagreed, but I still accepted your disgusting approach. And what are you planning to do now?" Lisa added. But Wei was unwavering in his belief that in this world, power decides everything. In a moment, the man's face changed, and after a brief pause, he offered Lisa to be his woman. He had long had latent feelings for the girl, but because of her father, he was afraid to act actively. Besides, he realized that together with Lisa, they could subdue a lot of people. Naturally, Lisa refused. Now Wei was disgusting to her. After all, in just a couple of hours, he had turned from a good and kind guy into a savage barbarian. Simon realized that if it continued like this, it might turn into a fight they would never win. So to calm Lisa down, our hero took her hand and promised that he would never become like that and would not betray her. Fortunately, the plan worked, and Lisa calmed down a bit. Wei opened the player rankings and said, "Hey Carapace, let's see what you've accomplished, shall we?" "Holy shit, you did something. 0 points, just 0 points. You're a worthless piece of trash. In this world, all you have to do is hope someone like Lisa likes you. You yourself are worthless, just trash," added Wei. As horrible a person as Wei is, he is absolutely right in this situation. Simon was well aware of that, and he would have done the same in Wei's place. But Lisa didn't share his views, probably because she was under Alphonse's influence. When Lisa realized their conversation was going nowhere good, she decided to just walk away and leave Wei behind. It was too presumptuous to think that Wei would just let her go after what had happened. But it can all be avoided, this condition, if Lisa agrees to Wei's terms and joins his team. But Lisa was undeterred. She realized that once Wei played with her, she would send her out to bait some monster. Besides, in the main city of the ancient gods, it's impossible to kill anyone. So Lisa felt relatively safe. But what she hadn't considered was that Wei might not kill her. But he'd do things to her that were disgusting to even think about. Smelling something fried, Lisa grabbed Simon's arm and started to run away. Of course, Wei didn't just stand by and watch them run away. With a single swipe of his foot, the man tore Lisa and Simon's arms apart. She realized that if she tried to escape now, she might succeed. But she couldn't leave our hero alone with Weiona. Seeing the confusion in Liz's eyes, Wei said, "Like I said, this guy will drag you to the grave with him. Explain why, even in this situation, you think more of him than you do of yourself." "You're not saying anything? Well, I'll explain to you in an ingenious way why in this world everything is decided by power," smilingly added Wei. But instead of doing it personally, the man ordered his tame dogs to sort it out. When suddenly one of them said, "Boss, we're in the main city. If we kill someone, there must be consequences." "You idiot! Gods!" They didn't say anything about a murder in the main city. And besides, he has 0 points. "It's unlikely that the ancient gods will stand up for this scum," replied Wei. "Oh yeah, that's a mess. Even in a cave with spider monsters, Simon feels safer than here." Simon didn't know if there would even be any punishment for the murders. But he was seriously considering calling for a Kofi and ordering her to finish them all off at once. Lisa couldn't just stand by and watch the poor guy get shunned, but she couldn't help him either. Because then Wei would be all over her, a decision that had to be made here and now. Simon realized that if there was a punishment for murder, it would hardly be worse than death. There's nothing left for him to do but call the Kofi. After activating the summoning, a bright purple light filled the entire area. A moment later, the Spider Queen appeared behind Simon with a huge poisonous scythe. Having finished our hero's appeal, only smiled and whispered, "Get ready." To say that everyone around me was surprised is not to say anything. They were really shocked, although it's more accurate to say they were terrified. Kofi's face was frighteningly calm. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment her whole life. The contract she made with our hero is worth more to her than even her own life. With one swing of her scythe, Kofi killed all of Wei's minions. After waiting a while, Simon realized there was no punishment for murder, which means he can kill Wei without fear of repercussions. Watching the Spider Queen kill all of his men on Simon's orders, Wei froze in fear. Plus, Kofi's gotten a lot bigger. Her strength and speed had increased several times. The man realized that if he fought her, she would destroy him without blinking an eye. Not knowing what to do, Wei thought he could make things right by just apologizing. Kneeling and lowering his head, the man begged Simon to spare him. When suddenly Lisa intervened in the conversation and said, "Mouse, wait, please." Walking up to the man, Lisa punched him in the face with all her might and shouted, "Shut up! How dare you open your mouth!" Beating Wei to a pulp, Lisa said, "It makes me sick to think that I ever trusted you. If there's anything left of a real man in you, just accept your sins and humbly wait for death," Lisa added. And then Lisa apologized to Simon for leading him to Wei and putting their lives in danger. The only unresolved question was what to do with Wei. He definitely deserves to die. But still, Simon had his doubts. After all, he wasn't threatening his life right now. To make his final decision, Simon opened the Wei character's window. And as it turns out, even now, he is only thinking about how to gain strength and kill our hero. Well, Wei chose his own fate. Simon had no choice but to nip the threat in the bud. Lisa was truly confused. She both wanted and didn't want Wei to die. Yes, of course he had been behaving terribly lately. There was no excuse for his actions. But the girl was still thinking about the pleasant past. And Simon noticed it. "Hey Wei, I think you've learned your lesson. And since you're apologizing so sincerely, I think you can be forgiven," Simon suddenly shouted. A spark of hope appeared in Wei's eyes for a second. But the Kofi's grim visage cast a primal dread. In her gaze was evident a sparkling desire to take Wei's soul to the other world. The thing is that Simon made a contract that requires Kofi to protect our hero from all ill-wishers. So until all of Simon's enemies are defeated, Kofi won't rest. And in this case, even a direct order from Simon would be useless. It's a matter of honor for the Queen to keep her part of the bargain. And Simon knew that very well. He'd arranged the whole pardon thing for Lisa, so as not to ruin their relationship. But then Agatha appeared and ordered the Kofi to stop. From that second, the goddess made a new rule. Killing other people in the main city was forbidden. When Wei heard this, he shouted at the top of his voice, "I knew it! Long live the ancient gods! I will always be your faithful servant." At that moment, Simon felt the ground slipping from under his feet. He knew it was too dangerous to leave Wei alive. So Simon decided to follow through, and even if Agatha didn't like it, he has to do it. Seeing Kofi's scythe pointing towards the man, our hero screamed, "No, stop! I don't want that!" Naturally, it was a bluff, a publicity stunt. In his mind, Simon was begging Kofi to take Wei's head off. But then, Agatha intervened in the body. Applying a petrification technique to the Kofi, she repeated, "In the main city, killing each other is forbidden." In a near-death experience, Wei wet his pants, realizing he's in a better position than our heroes. The man told Agatha that Simon had already killed 3 players. At this, but did not stop there. Wei asked the agate to punish our hero for the sins he had committed. Simon is now the closest thing to failure Simon has been since this madness began. The only thing that can save him is that he tried to stop the Kofi. Here, it would seem that Simon should find himself in a lousy situation, but the ancient god is still treating him well. So he shouldn't be in serious trouble. At this point, Wei completely lost his conscience. He started telling Agatha what to do. The man demanded that the ancient goddess kill the Kofi. Frankly, I envy Wei's good fortune. Agatha showed up at just the right moment. Agatha hasn't decided anything yet, and he's already dreaming of making Lisa his slave. Simon didn't just stand by and watch as he was driven to the cliff. In his defense, he said that it was Wei who had ordered his men to kill him, and he was only defending himself. After listening to the arguments on both sides, Agatha said, "The rules state that our warriors are forbidden to harm each other in this space. So that rule will be enforced right now. Simply put, neither Simon nor Wei will get what they want. Agatha won't punish anyone. But frankly, Wei had the most to gain in this situation. He once again escaped justice. And the funny thing is, even though he's on the verge of death, it hasn't changed him one bit. He still wants to kill Simon." Well, since it was over, our hero called the Kofi back. Looking at Agatha with puppy eyes, Simon said, "Thank you, great ancient god, for following the rules. From now on, no living soul will be harmed," even though he had once again escaped death. Wei still couldn't accept that Simon and Lisa hadn't been punished, when suddenly Agatha personally turned the man into a charred something. Our heroes were shocked at what was happening. Simon couldn't believe his eyes. After all, justice had been served. But why did Agatha do this? After examining Wei's body, our heroes realized that he was still alive, which meant it was a punishment. And you know the funny thing is, even after that, Wei still wanted revenge on Simon. That's how stubborn an idiot you have to be. Leaving, Agatha said, "Remember, my great warriors, you must not harm each other. Even though they can't kill each other in this space, Simon has been forgiven the horrible crime to some extent. So it went pretty well." Left alone, Lisa began to ask our hero about his ability to summon monsters. She wondered how exactly he controlled them. But Simon was too smart to reveal the whole truth. Instead, he said he was just lucky, and Coffee happened to recognize him as her master. Our hero understood what all these questions were about, so he added that he didn't mean to kill those three, and why it happened he doesn't know, then to convince Lisa that he had nothing to do with it. Simon began to press his pity, saying that he'd grown attached to her and couldn't leave her in danger. Seeing that Simon was concerned about the situation, Lisa said, "Mouse, you didn't do anything wrong. These people are the most responsible for their deaths. Even the ancient god didn't punish you. Don't blame yourself." What to say? Simon is great at sensing people's emotions and can manipulate them like this. And just when it seemed like it was all over, Agatha came back and said, "A crime punishable by death can only be atoned for by hard labor. Those who break the rules will not die. There is something worse in store for them." It seems that even the ancient goddess-friendly relationship with our hero won't save him. Simon's entire body began to heat up dramatically and emit a bright, pleasant pink light. That light grew brighter and brighter with each passing second, until Simon's body disappeared, leaving only a phantom trace. 10 minutes later, Agatha returned Simon to the place where she had taken him, but Lisa was gone. What our hero had to endure could hardly be called better than death. From now on, Simon decided to be careful. His body may be fine this time, but who knows how things will turn out in the future. The only thing that saved him from the torment of hell was that the Kofi took away most of his pain. A moment later, there was a terrible screeching sound throughout the city. It meant that Agatha was back again. The goddess, come to announce to the humans their first official mission. But before sending people on a mission, she said, "You have already familiarized yourself with the functions of the ancient god panel. And there you must have also seen the existence of dungeon points. The points you receive are a measure of your success in dungeons, but for each quest, the method of scoring is different. For example, this time newcomers get points for each monster they defeat. In this world, newcomers can get points for literally anything. Also, since there is no money in this world, you can buy anything for points earned in the dungeon, in a special trading center. The interesting thing about this store is that you can buy absolutely everything, from food to some rare combat items. During a test run, Agatha noticed that humans are very social creatures and group together to achieve a goal. So she created a special system whereby items could be exchanged with each other. Having finished telling about all the innovations, Agatha began the process of teleporting people to the point of the new task. This time, people will be tested on a planet that looks a lot like Earth, but that doesn't mean it's safe. People's first mission was to discover and study a new kind of life. Agatha gives exactly 60 days for that, in addition to exploring the new terrain and its inhabitants. People also need to earn dungeon points. On this planet, they can be obtained in 2 ways: exploration and hunting. And for newcomers, there was a bonus in the form of extra points for surviving for a long time. And to avoid inactivity on the part of weak players, Agatha has instituted a new rule. Those who do not earn a single point in the first 48 hours will be eliminated. And best of all, no resurrection after death this time. And to avoid the mass death of their warriors, the ancient gods gave people 3 hours to prepare. Once that time is up, the barrier will open and the mission will officially begin. Practically all the people rushed to the store to buy some weapons. Players in the top 100 could afford just about anything. Many of them started buying everything without knowing how it worked. Simon was well aware that in this new world, death could be waiting for him behind every bush. But he couldn't buy any weapons or supplies because he hadn't earned a single experience point in the first mission. I wouldn't say it's a big deal. Simon had a backup plan just in case. If he didn't have his own points, he could take them from someone else. Wei obviously didn't expect to see Simon. The man thought our hero would hide from him after what happened. But instead, Simon came to him himself and summoned Kofi without further ado. Our hero didn't intend to kill Wei. He only wanted to negotiate with him, and Kofi called in to strengthen his bargaining position. It seems that life doesn't teach him anything. Seeing Simon, Wei started to insult and threaten our hero. To cool him down a little, Simon asked Kofi to immobilize him. Well, now glued to the wall, he was finally starting to remember the good words. The man thought Simon was trying to set him up by leaving him here. After all, if he didn't earn at least one experience point, Agatha would destroy him. And then he said, "Look, I know we've had our differences before, but you see, I have nothing but a bunch of experience points, so let me give some of my points to you to make it up to you." Simon pretended at first to think about his proposal. But deep down, he was surprised that he was so smart that he understood why Simon had come here, knowing full well that he holds all the cards. Simon demanded all the experience points that Vaya had. Naturally, the man didn't agree to it. He still hadn't realized he wasn't in a position to make any conditions. Nevertheless, he offered to let Simon take half. At this point, Kofi walked up to the man and started taking measurements of him. Well, after that, she became not only hostile to Simon, she became his nemesis. Whatever was going on, the man insisted on his way. And then Simon said, "I don't enjoy keeping you here." "Well, you see, that's the problem. Kofi likes you. She's already started making you a silk cocoon. And you know what she's doing it for? Kofi wants to make you her doll, you know? Not wanting to become anyone's plaything," Wei shouted. "Wait! Understand I can't give you all my experience points. In this world, it's the same as dying. Take the 80 option points and we'll part peacefully, okay?" he added with tears in his eyes. Simon would never have agreed to this deal in his life if it weren't for one but. When he opened the man's character window, he learned that Kofi was really scared of him, and he was thinking about suicide, and in that case, Simon would get nothing. So our hero agreed to 80 experience points. The mall is divided into 4 main areas: equipment, props, literature, and cooking greens. The props area offers a wide range of goods such as food and medicine, as well as various survival tools. Items in the equipment section include weapons, armor, and even one-time magic spells with various special effects. In the literature section, you can find various books on acquiring a profession and skills. After studying them, you can obtain a vocational skill. There is only one item in the potion zone: Potion of Renewal Gust. The items in each zone are categorized on the shelves according to price and quality. Simon bought himself a wrist vending machine. As long as he has enough experience points, he can use it to buy the props he needs anywhere. It's a vending machine of average quality, so you can only use it 5 times. Simon's prop problem solved. What remained was to find a way to increase his own strength. To do this, he decided to check out what you can buy in the potions and literature zone. Our hero had gotten a book on getting a trade before. Then he didn't really understand what they were. Prop books fall into 3 basic categories: warrior, priest, Mac. Not among them was the profession of Simon the Monster Tamer. In other words, our hero has some sort of hidden and rare profession. In the store, the cheapest book to get the profession costs 200 experience points. Simon's book must be worth over 1,000. Right now, our hero has only the monster contract skill. It corresponds to level 0. To unlock the next skill, you need the first level. Simon can also increase the level of the monster contract skill to have 2 monsters in his command. The rest of the skills Simon must buy with the points he receives. Profession skills are automatically unlocked as the profession level increases, and general skills are purchased with experience points. Only then they can be equipped. Questions in another. The only option how you can increase your level is only thanks to Potion of Breakthrough Upgrade. The point is that the potion is only a support object. In order to be able to move to the next level, you need to gain a certain number of skill points. Thanks to his high level of willpower, Simon doesn't need many points to level up. Pumping strength or endurance in the case of our hero is pointless, so he decided to emphasize his will. For this purpose, he bought a book on studying mental exercises. After buying this book, Simon felt a change, albeit a slight one. Moreover, some yoga-like movements automatically appeared in his mind. when suddenly, a man came up to our hero, handed him a business card and said, "Hello, my name is Chimo. I was in the real estate business." It's funny that even in this situation, some people try to make their old job a reality. Seeing the confusion in our hero's eyes, Chimo said, "I apologize. I can't get rid of my old habit. Of course I won't sell you the house. I want to invite you to join my team." Before Simon could say anything, a stranger intervened in their conversation. Smiling, the guy said, "Chimo, you didn't realize the guy doesn't want to join your team." Apparently, these two know each other from a previous life. This stranger who chased Chimo away was a guy named Genie. Simon spent a long time trying to figure out why Jin's face looked familiar. When he opened the character window, Simon realized that Jin was one of the top 5 players in the first challenge. Seeing portable vending machines on our hero's arm, Jin praised him for making the right choice. After exchanging pleasantries, Jin said, "Let's get to you. I've created the Earth Kings team. There are about 50 of us now, and we are the best of the best. Now I want to find an assistant to lead the team with me. Would you like to join me?" Simon was pleased that a man like Jin was paying attention to him, but he didn't want to join his team, so I turned down his offer. Of course, you might think that giving up was the wrong decision, but on the other hand, it makes no sense for Simon to join a team with strong players if he wants to earn experience points. After our hero left, Wei came to the genie and said, "Captain, we don't need this kid. He's stupid and arrogant." Wei didn't really think so. He knows exactly what Simon is capable of. He just realized that if our hero joined their team, his position in the team would be worse. Jin saw that fear in Wei's eyes. Then he directly asked why the man was so afraid of the little boy. "Hey." She immediately got nervous and made excuses, saying they just don't have the best relationship, and she doesn't want to ruin the mood of the team. Jin saw that Wei was blatantly lying to him, but nevertheless, he decided to play along and said, "Don't worry. If he joins our team, I will personally resolve your conflict." And to boost Wei's confidence a bit, Jin gave him a pair of steel gloves and a huge sword. I must admit, it worked. Having gotten such strong props, Wei felt himself back on top of his game. Meanwhile, Simon was trying to come up with a plan of action for the next couple of days, because so far the mission's goal seemed vague. Suddenly, Kofi appeared out of nowhere and jumped on Simon from behind, passionately hugging him. It was very strange and unexpected, but their seclusion didn't last long. For a flustered Lisa appeared on the horizon, looking for Simon, ran up to our hero and asked him for his hand. Apparently she wanted to give him some kind of gift. Lisa made this gift to apologize for introducing Simon to Wei, this amulet that can save the wearer from a mortal wound. You could say that Lisa gave Simon an extra life. In this world, it's a much-needed item. Its price is 40 experience points, which means Lisa spent everything she had on it. Having given the gift, Lisa hurriedly left. The girl said that she still had some unfinished business. For all of this, it made Simon uncomfortable. He realized that Lisa had given everything she had, putting herself at risk. But now is not the time to think about that, because we are just minutes away from the start of the challenge. So it's time to get ready to go out. The time for preparation is over. Humans will have to explore a previously unknown area. And to make this assignment more exciting and interesting, Agatha will send a hunting assignment from time to time. When the meters showed zeros, the barrier opened and people rushed towards adventure and the unknown. The strongest players quickly surged to the front and literally began to gain their first experience points in a matter of minutes. The most nimble were able to get a bunch of points for scouting new territories. Simon started to fall behind from the very beginning, and eventually, he was left alone. Our hero deliberately lagged behind so that no one would see his true strength. Making sure no one was around, Simon called out to Kofi. "Kofi! It's time to earn a whole bunch of points up front!" shouted Simon excitedly. I hope you remember that Kofi's agility score is higher than anyone crossed with Simon, and speed is no exception either. 5 minutes from the start of the mission, all mass players started receiving messages about new zones being opened, and when they opened the world map, they made sure of it. Everyone thought it was some kind of mistake, because even the fastest players couldn't have gotten this far so quickly. Simon and Kofi had advanced 5 kilometers deep into the forest. Because of this, they only received 1 experience point. And the best part was that they hadn't encountered a single monster the whole time. Apparently, Agatha had created some kind of safe zone around the main city to make it easier for people. If you consider how much our heroes have already traveled and compare that to the scale of the map, it turns out this world is huge. No, it's infinite. It feels like the duration of this mission will not be short. Thanks to Kofi, Simon was able to get deep into the woods. It's just a pity that for today, our hero has received only 10 experience points for exploration, and the task to hunt from Agatha has not appeared. Unfortunately, to collect on the breakthrough potion upgrade, you need to gather at least 200 experience points. Scouting alone won't accomplish that, so you'll have to hunt the local critters. The goblins are ideal, but even with their pitiful strength stats, they're an unattainable target for Simon. After a couple minutes of thought, Simon received a hunting assignment from Agatha, and he needed to kill 8 forest goblins to get 5 experience points. Kofi promptly volunteered to complete this task to help our hero. To be honest, Simon wanted to ask Kofi to do it himself, because he wouldn't be able to finish off any goblins personally. Before beginning, Simon said, "No matter how powerful our enemy is, we should always treat him with caution, so don't get cocky." Kofi heeded his advice and decided to attack from the shadows, just goblin style. With the first blow, the Spider-Woman sent the strongest goblin to the other side. Losing their strongest link, the goblins began to scatter and panic in all directions, and Simon only had them watching everyone from the sidelines. To achieve her goal, Kofi created a huge spiderweb trap in which about a dozen goblins fell into, and the ones that got away, Kofi killed them with her scythe. And after only half a minute, Simon's meter read the right number, and the mission was accomplished. You could be happy if it weren't for one big problem. The death cries of the goblins summoned more monsters, and these were already years faster and stronger. And in addition, there are goblins armed with long-range weapons, bows and crossbows, just like in the computer game. Kofi dealt with the regular goblins quickly, with just a few swipes of her scythe. But the real threat was goblins with long-range weapons. They could easily hit our hero. Thanks to her high agility scores, Kofi easily dodged all the arrows. But every second the goblins were getting bigger and bigger. And then, Simon made the decision to retreat immediately to save the strength and health of the Kofi. But it was too dangerous to retreat without a clear plan, and then Simon decided to purchase something portable from a vending machine. There were only 2 items for our hero's purposes: a smoke bomb and a teleportation scroll. The smoke bomb was more suited for offensive action. So Simon decided to choose the teleportation scroll because it was safer. The principle behind this scroll is quite simple. By opening it, the owner opens a portal that lasts only 10 seconds. Of course, you may think that its time of action is very short, and its price is very high. 2 experience points, but when you consider that for that cost, our hero saved himself in the Kofi. It's a very favorable exchange. This teleportation scroll had a day of disadvantage. It transported the host to a random location. I mean, running away from some monsters. You can't be sure you won't be led to others. And once again, Kofi pounced on Simon in a heated embrace. Lately, she's been having a lot of hot flashes. Apparently, spending time together strengthens their relationship. Kofi was upset that Simon had interrupted her fight with the goblins. But in this situation, it was a necessary measure. Kofi's strength was practically 0. Simon said, "Don't worry, we'll still have a chance to get revenge. I've already figured out how to do it." But first we had to determine where the teleporter had taken them. When Simon opened the map, he noticed something strange. The place where they had encountered the forest goblins was still unexplored. Perhaps there were some special additional rules for exploring the map. When the ancient god announced the rules, she stated that intelligence points were awarded according to her standards and rules, but she didn't say which ones. To be honest, Simon was frightened by the fact that everything in this world worked according to the rules of a single being. Absolute power does not lead to anything good. And following the nearest location, our heroes stumbled upon a goblin camp. When Simon saw them, he immediately had the idea of cleaning it up. But he'd have to be very careful. The observation towers make it hard to even get close without being seen. The main forces of the forest goblin fortress have been withdrawn to eliminate the external threat of our heroes. So there's almost no one left in it now. So it's the perfect time for a sweep. Having found the goblin base, Simon received a hunting assignment from Agatha. He had to destroy the fortress and cause as much damage to the goblins as possible. The more the stage of destruction, the more points Simon will get. The appearance of the task very pleased our hero, because he originally planned to spend the points earned on revenge. And now it turns out that he will be able to take revenge and earn more. Within a couple of minutes, Simon had come up with a plan. He decided to build it around Kofi's speed advantage. The plan was simple. Simon was to create the right conditions for the barricade to break through with smoke bombs, and all the red work was supposed to be done by the Kofi. That night, a massive fire broke out in the nearest forest-bought fortress. In the eyes of the forest goblins, the arsonist was so elusive that he was hard to see. The only thing they saw was a purple silhouette disappearing from sight in moments of eye. In just one night, our heroes burned about 5 forest goblin fortresses, and taking into account the cost of explosive checkers. Simon got 30 experience points, and our hero already has 68 experience points. The antics of our friends, however, have angered the regular army of forest goblins. So now this area is temporarily off limits to Simon. At least this area is safe now. All the forest goblins have been wiped out, and those who survived have fled. As suddenly, Kofi abruptly turned around and looked suspiciously deep into the forest. After the sweep, our heroes teleported to safety. But when the Kofi reacts so strangely, even Simon tenses up. Could it be that they're being approached by enemies? It was too dangerous to stand around and wait for the enemy. So Kofi and Simon went to investigate. They found Jin's group nearby. I can see why the spider reacted the way it did. It sensed Wei's presence. Since the last time they met Wei, he's gotten much stronger thanks to the equipment Jin gave him. Yeah, the team approach of concentrating all the team's points on one person is very effective. Even if you can't level up, you can still rely on good gear to increase your max. Holy crap! His level 0 skills combined with his special weapons and equipment make Wei's attack speed even faster than Kofi's. Frankly, it causes a number of serious problems. Wei is simply terrifying in his strength, but he is very cautious. As soon as he realizes that he is superior in strength to the Kofi, he will definitely take fierce revenge. And before he realizes it, Simon has decided to act. The only way he can keep himself safe is to nip the threat in the bud. Kofi separated the head from the body with a single sweep of her scythe. Of course, this is incredibly cruel, but in the current situation, it is necessary, especially since Wei wanted Simon dead in the first place. When Jin saw this, he ordered all his men to retreat immediately, because Kofi killed their primary damage dealer. They're not going to be able to handle a monster like her. Realizing that there was no way to avoid the fight, the genie was willing to sacrifice himself to save the rest of his team. What was his surprise when after killing Wei the monster just disappeared? No one more. When suddenly the genie shouted, "I don't care where you came from, and I, Gene, will not leave you alone until you're dead." Such a fiery speech raised the morale of the entire team. Even though they had lost one of their strongest men, they were very enthusiastic. Gene was actually very happy that Kofi had decided to leave, and those words about killing her were just a morale booster. For the next 3 days, the humans did nothing but try to survive, fighting the forest goblins. Some people did and some people didn't. All the people who were ranked below our hero were dead, and Simon was the only one who felt safe as he mulled over a plan of action. The Kofi farming goblins for him, a previously explored area that had recently been consecrated turned black again, because an army of forest goblins invaded the area and established a fortress there. Simon realized that if this continued, it would be over before it started. The goblins would soon go on the offensive and lay siege to the players in the main city, and in just a couple of days they would kill them all. At least that's what Simon thought. But his thoughts were not unfounded, when suddenly, Kofi brought Simon the breathless body of a common forest goblin scout. By opening his character window, Simon learned that goblin meat can be eaten. However, there are goblins in the area whose meat can be fatal. But even that didn't stop the Kofi. She began to tear off piece after piece with her small but sharp teeth. When Simon saw it, he shouted, "No! Throw it away! You can't eat that stuff!" Luckily, our hero spotted it in time and Kofi spit it out. What she ate. But food was still a problem. Simon hadn't eaten anything for days. And in these woods there are no fruits or berries, and even the monsters are poisonous. And then, our hero decided to check what there is to eat in the vending machine. And the first dish he was offered was dragon liver with cream sauce for an unrealistic amount of money. Simon was shocked that there was such an expensive meal. Scrolling to the bottom of the list, our hero found energy pills of terrible quality, but they cost only 5 experience points. At this rate, Simon's gonna lose all the points he's been saving up to level up. While meditating, it dawned on Simon that he had one useless skill that could save his life in this situation. Stepping out onto a small lawn, Simon began to nibble on the grass. And the useful skill Simon remembered was the scavenger skill. With his help, the taste of grass is simply magical, and most importantly, Simon can digest it and get the necessary strength. The other players who saw it thought Simon had lost his mind. He really liked the taste of grass. After refreshing himself with grass, Simon returned to his makeshift camp. By then, the Kofi had already returned with a good catch. Simon got 20 experience points for completing this mission. It was difficult, but it was worth it. Over the past few days, Simon had been secretly watching the meat goblin's trajectory to determine the best time and place for an ambush. Then had Kofi set up spiderweb traps. That way he could restrict their movement, tied their hands, so to speak. They've managed to capture ordinary soldiers who aren't particularly strong, but only on their own. If they work as a team, they're in trouble. It took a lot of effort to intercept them one by one. And even though it went fairly smoothly, Kofi was seriously injured. The girl has been fighting goblins almost non-stop for days on end and is ready to continue, but her strength is running out. Simon only has two options right now. The first is to contract another monster to give Kofi a rest, and the second is to reinforce her. Suddenly, Simon felt an incredible surge of strength. This meant that he had already accumulated enough experience points and increased his will to the limit. Apparently, meditating in his spare time has yielded results, and now our hero can finally raise his level. But first, you need to buy the upgrade breakthrough potion. You can of course buy it from the vending machine, but Simon only has 3 uses left, so it would be more logical to go to the main town and buy the potion there. Thanks to Kofi, our heroes made it to the city in just half a day. After buying the potion, Simon didn't hesitate and immediately decided to drink it. The taste of the potion was quite pleasant, reminiscent of water from a mountain stream, only more viscous. Almost immediately, Simon felt a change. His thinking speed became faster, his vision sharper. He began to feel things he had never felt before. His consciousness is now intimately connected to his monsters. He vaguely senses the mood of the Kofi. She is bored now and wants to go to that forest to fight again. It turns out that the measure of will is not just intelligence, but also mental connection. With its enhancement, Simon gained a number of metaphysical abilities, such as perception and intuition. But the most important thing is just the skill points gained as a result of the upgrade. They can be used to upgrade the skills of professions. In other words, Simon can now enhance a contract technique by 1 level or learn a new skill. And since the monsters here are very weak, and to contract with them is pointless, our hero chose to get a new skill. Simon got the morale-boosting skill. When this skill is activated, Simon can increase the strength and agility of his monster for a full minute, using this skill 5 times a day. As expected, the profession skill is closely related to his contract monster. After the upgrade, the profession skill will also improve. In this case, even if Kofi's attributes don't grow in the future, he will be able to rely on the skills. After leveling up and unlocking a new skill, Simon still had a few experience points left, and he decided to spend them on Kofi. The first thing to do after the update is to experiment with your newfound strength. Simon should have gotten stronger. Now we need to beat up a forest goblin to make sure of it. But most goblins operate in teams, so our hero should avoid groups. Because against a whole team to try his strength will not work, he will lose. What was his joy when, after several hours of long search, they still came upon a lone forest goblin. It's the first in this mission when Simon asked Kofi to leave the monster to him. The Spider-Woman reluctantly stepped aside. She was worried that the monster would hurt our hero, and the goblin, seeing the common man against him, decided this was his chance to escape. But he was in for a nasty surprise. Back in the main city, Simon acquired a universal defense field that can protect against almost all attacks. Of course, every time this field barrier is activated, its energy is consumed. But from a full-fledged forest goblin attack, the barrier consumes only 1% of the energy. Okay, but we've tested the defense. Now it's time to test his improved offense. Holy shit. Even though Simon has leveled up, his attack power is still embarrassingly low. It's a little frustrating, but I wouldn't say it's a big deal. Instead of physical strength, Simon has Kofi, which he enhanced with his morale-boosting skill. And that's what's really amazing. Kofi is incredibly strong and fast even without the boost, but with Simon's boost, she becomes a true flash of death. Maybe Simon shouldn't be so focused on his strength numbers. He has something else to survive and move forward with. Just a couple days ago, if they had tried to attack the goblin squad head-on, they wouldn't have succeeded. But now, with the reinforcements, they could make a real massacre. The best way to become stronger is through specialized attributes of will, which are dropped in treasure chests. However, to get such a task where the reward will be a chest of gold is incredibly difficult. So you will have to fulfill the incoming tasks and wait for luck. And meanwhile, a new species of goblin has appeared in the forests here. They are much faster, stronger and smarter than the previous ones. In just a couple hours, these goblins have killed over a dozen people. These new goblins were literally crumbling entire mobs, and even strong players were trying to avoid meeting them. But not our heroes. The Kofi exterminated these goblins in packs, and thanks to Simon's amplification, she did it with a special grace, while the strongest teams prepared and made plans to mop up the forest goblin camps. Kofi and Simon just came in and killed all the monsters without a second thought. That's the new power. When Jin saw that the monster that killed Wei had cleaned out the goblin base, he froze in horror. He didn't know what to do next. He had promised his men that he would kill her, but even a blind man could see that she had become stronger. Watching the Kofi tear the goblins apart, Jin realized that the only option was to sit quietly and stay out of her sight. It only took her a minute to completely sweep the entire forest goblin base, after which Kofi just disappeared, just like she did after killing Wei. Once again, Jin thought, death had overtaken them, but millions of questions tore at his head. Who is she? Why is she doing this? And why did she only kill Wei and not touch anyone else? Realizing that his men were even more frightened than himself, Jin said, "This is a special monster created by an ancient god. For now, let's avoid her. But it won't be long before we are stronger and take back our power in this forest and the world." Very quickly, rumors began to spread among the people about a purple monster who had killed cities of forest goblins with his scythe. Some people were saved by the two-spider. They were grateful, thinking it was reinforcements. Some, however, were angry at her because she killed the goblins they were hunting, causing their mission to fail completely. In any case, the goblin advance was halted because of the spider's appearance, and the humans were entrenched in the forest area. After half a month of exploration, a large area was already illuminated, but most of it was still hidden. To fully illuminate this area, we need to find the goblin nest and get rid of it. The people thought that the spider was sent by the ancient gods to help them with this. Lately, our heroes have been breaking all records against goblins. Due to the goblins' huge advantage in numbers, the Kofi are taking wounds. But thanks to the morale boost, they heal quickly. Unfortunately, Simon must be near a Kofi to use this skill effectively. During one of the battles, Kofi set an absolute record by killing 30 goblins in 1 minute. As a reward, Simon received the title of Chief Goblin Enemy and a rare treasure chest. But to open it, our hero failed. The system informed him that this operation was impossible in this zone. To open this chest, Simon needs to return to the main city, but more interestingly, the neighboring goblin tribes are banding together to go to war with Simon. It looks like there's a huge disaster looming. The united tribe of goblins called upon their strongest shaman. In addition, a new army of goblins was formed from goblins that were much stronger. All those with whom our heroes have already had to fight. Even though war was imminent, Simon was calm and continued to slaughter goblins in droves. The whole point was that he saw that Kofi was holding back his potential to some extent, as if he was afraid to show his full power. Although the goblins were not strong in strategy, Simon did not underestimate them. So he soon found the perfect place to ambush them. Deep in the forest, our heroes found a huge ruin of some old city. Here, Simon wanted to capture a scouting party and kill all but one of them, so he could go back to his people and tell them everything. Kofi has pre-deployed the threads that will allow her to sense the approach of the enemies, as far away as 300 meters. In addition, Simon has acquired a high-quality teleportation scroll. Unlike in the earlier version, with this scroll, Simon can choose his own destination point. So, in case of emergency, our heroes have a fallback plan. Suddenly, Kofi felt someone approaching. I wonder how strong the combined forces involved in the war against our hero are. Half a minute later, a squad of elite goblin scouts approached the ruins where Trap was already waiting for them. The biggest threat to our heroes were the level 1 cavalry goblins. Having activated the morale boost, Simon and Kofi launched their attack. Even the elite goblin troops are no match for her when she's reinforced. Thanks to the morale boost, Kofi will not be threatened by anything until she is in an absolute environment. And besides, Simon had prepared everything in advance. Kofi's main goal was to lure the entire squad into the heart of the ruins, to catch them in your net. Only through cunning can you defeat an enemy that outnumbers you. Shifting her nets, Kofi made the ground beneath the monster's feet dance. This caused the goblins to be trapped under the rubble, and those who were still alive, she cut into 1,000 little pieces. The trap worked perfectly. The result was even better than Simon thought. The only thing that confused our hero was that the mission still hadn't been accomplished, meaning that someone had managed to survive. Simon saw a Kofi take down an entire goblin squad with his own eyes. And then our hero noticed that right above the Kofi's head, another goblin appeared out of the void. This monster's speed and attack power are many times greater than any other monster. After its strike, the ground began to crack at the seams. Luckily, our hero saw the phantom appearing over the Kofi in time to teleport her back to his place, thereby giving away Simon's real position. Upon opening the character card, Simon recognized the goblin shaman in front of him, enhanced with the unique attributes of the ancient forest. To fight such an opponent now would be too reckless. So Simon decided to leave the battlefield as soon as possible. Well, all in all, Everything went according to plan. All but one of the squad was wiped out. But at least now our hero knows who he has to fight. The best place to teleport, Simon found the main city. But in their haste, the scroll teleported our heroes to the wrong place. And to keep Kofi's identity secret, Simon put her back in his shadow. She's a local star now. People don't need to know that Simon has anything to do with her. To be honest, our heroes were a bit surprised after meeting the shaman, because his strength is truly amazing. The only way to kill him is to become stronger. But first, you need to open a rare chest. Coming out, on the main square of the city, our hero saw huge crowds of people who had just returned from a mission. Luckily, more people survived than Simon expected. But what bothered him most was the fact that Jin was using his men for selfish purposes. In fact, leaving them with empty pockets, even though he's wearing the best clothes. But there are some that, unfortunately, have already started to die off. Some because of injuries, and some because they couldn't get any experience points. It's all terribly sad and unfair, but this is the current reality. Finding a private place, out of sight, out of mind. Simon decided to open his rare prize chest after all. Our hero prayed to all the gods that he would get some props that increase spiritual power, because then he would be able to rise to the second level. From the chest, Simon received a replacement pill of rare quality. This item can turn the user into another creature, but at the same time, leaving the consciousness unchanged. In the eyes of other players and creatures, the person who swallows the pill will be completely different. The pill's effect lasts for 24 hours. After learning what the pills could do, Simon's mind immediately turned to a plan to kill the shaman. How to get into the goblin camp is already understood. But how not to give yourself away by not speaking the language? Well, it's simple. Simon's vending machine had translation candy. If you eat one of these candies, you can understand and speak the language of the monsters. As Simon prepared to deal a crushing blow to the combined goblin forces, the monsters destroyed the human units one by one. So our hero was forced to act immediately. The easiest option was to pretend to be a lone scout who'd just returned from a mission. Luckily, Coffee helped solve that issue. So instead of a regular scout, to the goblin army our hero undercover has already returned. To be honest, understanding and speaking in goblin language was quite strange. Simon wasn't entirely sure of his plan. After all, he hadn't used the translation candy or the transformation pills before, but by the looks of it, it worked. Simon, already in the form of a goblin scout, told them that he had found their nemesis, i.e. himself. When the scouts heard about it, they immediately notified everyone else. The shaman wanted to talk to our hero in person, for he is the only goblin who has seen their nemesis live for the first time in a long time. Simon couldn't believe that even the shaman had fallen for such a simple transformation trick, although that's not surprising. After all, the pills were of rare quality, after the shaman had sent all his soldiers to capture their worst enemy. Simon went to him and said, "Oh great master, I have another important piece of information. If you have something to say it. Don't keep me waiting, we still have revenge to get," replied the shaman angrily. Pulling a sinister smile, our hero said, "You brainless idiot, who are you going to take revenge on?" At first, such insolence from a common goblin seemed suspicious to the shaman. Before he could comprehend anything, the shaman felt the cold gaze of the Kofi behind him. Upon seeing the breathless body of their leader, the regular goblins immediately ran into battle, and in order to deal with them quickly and leave before the others returned, Simon decided to activate the morale boost. In mere seconds, the spider put down an entire squad of shaman's guards, and by that time, 2 scouts had returned. When they saw what was happening, they said, "We have all received a blessing from the great shaman. If you kill us, the curse of the gods will follow you for the rest of your life." Smiling, Simon replied, "You think I can be intimidated by threats of gods that don't exist?" After killing one of the great shamans, Simon was given the title of mortal enemy of the forest goblins, and as a reward, he now has access to another treasure chest with rare quality treasures. What if the goblins' growing hatred of our hero is the curse of the gods? In that case, we need to find a way to get rid of all the goblins once and for all. Remember those scouts who came to the shaman's rescue?